RSC panel and guests. My name is Shelly Wright. I love my job as a primary teacher and enjoy making a positive difference in the lives of children and their families. I have a zest for the outdoors. I believe in living life to the fullest, living in the moment, and treasuring each day. It is important to me that I can give my best to myself, my family, and the people I work with in an environment that doesn't hurt my body. Over the last few years, some teachers like myself have experienced negative biological effects from government-sanctioned levels of microwave radiation exposure. Over the last 3 years, I was continuously exposed to undocumented levels of Wi-Fi signals at work, even though only some students or teachers were using the wireless network. The laptops for kindergarten just arrived last year. For some teachers across Canada, our electromagnetic sensitivity has become a chronic life-changing illness, and our employers are not responding to our plea to accommodate our environmental sensitivity because studies say our physical pain is not real. ES can be quite debilitating for some of us. Unfortunately, Safety Code 6 fails to make appropriate recommendations for those who are vulnerable or sensitive to these signals, nor does it provide long-term exposure recommendations as guidelines for employers. The continuous bombardment of excessive microwave radiation all day, every day, for years translates for me and other teachers who have become sensitive. Loss of income, loss of health, loss of service time, reduced pension, months of misdiagnosis, long-term lifestyle changes, and increased family stress. Because employers are not responding to the multiple doctors' requests for patient accommodations, ES employees are forced to go on short-term disability, extended unpaid medical leave, or resign in an effort to regain health. Unfortunately, WSIB and teacher insurance plans base their decisions on Health Canada's regulations. There is no support available for legitimate ES cases because Health Canada and Safety Code 6 says the technology is completely safe despite significant evidence on the contrary. Rather than making companies accountable for safety, Safety Code 6 gives companies an excuse to disregard any evidence that indicates possible health effects due to electromagnetic radiation exposure. It fails to make insurance companies accountable for those with legitimate ES disabilities in the cases where employers cannot provide accommodation. Some teachers and principals have resigned because they cannot tolerate the pervasive, devastating symptoms they feel around wireless signals. Other teachers who aren't sensitive to Wi-Fi have reported their own children are getting sick from wireless systems. Safety standards need to acknowledge that there are sensitive individuals that need protection. Perhaps employers could accommodate employees by reinstalling the old Ethernet systems, install on-off switches, or provide wireless carts so that Wi-Fi signals can be controlled and individuals sensitive to these signals can work more productively. Safety Code 6 needs to give weight to the increasing number of independently funded research studies indicating negative biological effects, and less weight to those industry-funded studies which fail to test subjects according to the frequencies they were sensitive to, fails to appropriately timed intervals EMF exposure, document post-study effects which were significant, and fails to include the number of participants who were so ill they had to leave the study. Safety Code 6 needs to give more weight to independently funded studies as well as patient logs from reputable hospitals such as Women's College Hospital. Anecdotal patient reports can accurately reflect the daily experiences of individuals diagnosed with ES. Safety Code 6 needs to develop guidelines to support individuals with ES sensitivity so they can productively participate in public settings and in the workplace without experiencing daily discomfort and pain, thus avoiding exposure and living fully. Following the 2012 bioinitiative recommendations that Wi-Fi levels should not exceed 5 microwatts per meter squared, my current classroom is at 100 microwatts per meter squared. That's 20 times the exposure I can handle 7 hours a day. Public places like hospitals, libraries, grocery stores, parks, remote camping areas are not accessible to me without causing me physical pain. I've discovered pervasive Wi-Fi signals or cell towers in most public places. My own home is my only refuge. Safety Code 6 needs to develop guidelines to support vulnerable populations like children, elderly, and those with compromised immune systems, and recommend that levels not exceed 5 microwatts per meter squared. Where are my rights as a parent to protect my own children in public places? Safety Code 6 needs to recognize that thousands of children and teens have their personal devices on constantly in their pocket, attached to their head, or on their laps potentially hours for a day, and for some at their bedside table all night long. I've been diagnosed with electromagnetic hypersensitivity by a reputable doctor at Women's College Hospital. When I mentioned my sensitivity to my vice principal, she phoned to the IT department immediately. The access point in my classroom was turned off, and the problem was solved within a few hours. The Wi-Fi was not being used, as no parents send their children to kindergarten with a tablet computer, or they'd find them digging it in the sandbox. I felt much better, and I could teach with energy and focus. A few days later, my body began to feel sick again. When I inquired about this, I was told that indeed the access point had been activated. I realized this issue wasn't medical, it had become political. Although students and teachers are accommodated for many physical needs, my medical need was different. It would be ignored for years to come because it was tangled deeply in politics related to incorrectly performed or misinterpreted industry-based studies. I'm still suffering 4 years later. Because Safety Code 6 does not acknowledge any effects other than thermal, employers aren't comfortable accommodating employees who report other biological effects. Unfortunately, Wi-Fi signals feel intrusive to my body. Exposure to these signals leaves my body feeling a range of symptoms, from pins and needles to razor-sharp posterior head pain, which feel like someone stabbing me at the back of my head, followed by frontal head pressure that accumulates over days. Migraines and extreme fatigue can last up to 3 days. On Monday, I'm well. By Thursday, I'm ill. And it takes me entire weekends to recuperate. My body appears to be less capable of managing this energy with every exposure. Through personal journaling, I became aware I was sensitive to electromagnetic radiation, more specifically microwave frequencies that include Wi-Fi, cell phones, and personal devices such as laptops, wireless headphones. I can feel the wireless signals from the house next door, which sometimes registers 7 microwatts on my meter. I now sit at one side of the classroom to get as far away as possible from the Wi-Fi signals. In the adult world, I'm a tinfoil hat person to be mocked and made fun of because I have a medical condition. I'm uncomfortable with wearing my hat and veil in front of my colleagues, so I wear this brain cap under my hat outside my classroom, which gives me limited protection, if any, and I'm putting up with the pain and fatigue every day. Wearing protective clothing is not a long-term solution because although it reduces my exposure, it does not provide me with enough protection. I wear my hat and veil inside my classroom when only my students can see me. I wear protective clothing all day long, but it isn't a perfect solution. A full body suit may provide me with the protection I need. I'm currently taking a sick day midweek to give my body a much needed break. If Safety Code 6 guidelines protected those individuals, my employer would have already deactivated my access point or installed an on-off switch so I could control the Wi-Fi settings in my classroom. Last year, I was on extended unpaid medical leave. This had a negative impact on my family. I feel perfectly healthy at home. If there's no Wi-Fi signals, I could teach with energy and focus and good health. When I was on unpaid medical leave, I requested a simple, reasonable accommodation recommended from my doctor. My board told me they would not be able to make accommodations. There was no place for me to work within the board because every building had Wi-Fi signals. They said I would not be allowed to return to work as my doctor's note stated I required accommodation, nor would I be able to receive compensation from OTIP or WSIB. I was out of work, not sick enough to be allowed accommodations, too sick to be allowed to return to the classroom, yet not sick enough to receive any insurance benefits after dedicating 25 years of service to my profession. I knew a solution would be challenging with these doors closed. I've retracted my request for accommodation, returned to the classroom wearing protective clothing. I teach in an environment that feels toxic to me, and I feel sick every day with worsening symptoms as the week goes on. There are other teachers like me across Canada who are suffering needlessly each day because employers are told studies aren't conclusive, accommodations therefore are not necessary because they are not legally obligated to provide them. One teacher I met was told that she had to wear an FM voice transmitting system without a protective vest to accommodate a student with a hearing disability. When she expressed concern, she was told she was just being difficult. Now she has breast cancer. To support my employer, I don't mention my environmental sensitivity to Wi-Fi to parents or wear my hat and veil at interview time. In other words, to keep my job, I'm making myself vulnerable to wireless signals. Without protection, I suffer these effects every day. On bad days when I drive down the street, I feel signals blasting me from every house. At stoplights, I feel texting from the cars around me. On the highway, some cell towers send an intolerable pain through my head that I need to clutch my head, deep breathe, and know that although the pain is short-term, the residual effects of pressure and chronic fatigue can be long-lasting, depending on my cumulative exposures that day. This is a medical condition that is very isolating. Grocery stores, public libraries, hospitals, doctor's office, public transit, amusement parks, and beaches are out of the question. I have to limit my time in these places to avoid the devastating negative biological effects. Constant texting while waiting in lines to buy food is intolerable and leaves me feeling head pain, pressure, and fatigue for days. As a taxpayer, I relinquish my right to enjoy public places with my family and friends. I need protection in public so I can enjoy the variety of activities available to most Canadians. I'm safest at home, where thankfully signals are very low. I've spent thousands of personal dollars on extended medical leave, an EMF canopy, protective clothing, meters, health supplements, wired systems, landline phones, laptops with wired capabilities. Others like me have had to move multiple times to find homes away from cell towers. If Safety Code 6 acknowledged the negative biological effects, perhaps I could reclaim my life and feel public places were accessible again. Typical cell users use their phones constantly. Some teams send over 5,000 text messages a month, regardless of warning labels telling users to keep their phones 10 millimeters from their bodies. Most people hold their cell phone against their ear and store them in their pockets next to their skin. Smartphone and tablet computer users are streaming videos, playing online games, uploading large files like music or photo, and using video chats. These uses require cell networks with higher bandwidth, higher frequencies, closer to towers, and stronger signals. Our exposure to electromagnetic radiation is increasing exponentially. There has been no time to evaluate the effects of long-term exposure to this level. We are conducting an experiment on the whole population, and there's no longer an unexposed control group for comparison. It is time for Safety Code 6 to completely reevaluate to take into consideration the current use and users of this technology and the types of real-world exposures we are experiencing. Safety standards need to be revised to match the reality of how people use their phones and wireless systems. The standards need to consider the enormous studies showing biological effects at levels much lower than those causing heating effects. Safety standards based on thermal effect on an adult male after 6-minute exposure does not make any sense to me. Please hear my cry for help. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Can I just quickly show you the hat and veil I wear at school?
Sure. While she's doing that, any comments from the panel? What's it look like?
While you're doing that, can you tell us what the shielding in your clothing and so would have to be? I'm ignorant on this.
Yes, this is actually what I wear in the classroom. This shielding actually comes from a company in the UK. My husband's the engineer, so he could probably give you the specs on that. Unfortunately, I don't have the specs, but I can send it to the panel afterwards. So it is a blocker to block EMFs. And although it is a protective barrier, it's not giving me enough protection. I'm still feeling the effects of EMF exposure. And I'm wondering if the reason why I'm feeling them is because I'm uncomfortable wearing this in front of my colleagues. It doesn't feel good to have to wear something like this in front of others. So I wear it privately in my classroom to give me the maximum protection. But as soon as I step out of my classroom into the hallway where the access points are, I put on my pink hat and my EMF cap, which is just a little brain cap. And I can give you information about that as well. So this is a blocker. It's intended to reduce the signals that are affecting my body. But I'm wondering if maybe in time I really truly do need a full body suit because it's just not, this combination is not working for me right now. When I'm outside, outdoors, grounding, I feel so much better. When I do get sick, sometimes it takes me days to get better. So this is just a cowboy hat I have, and I just put this on top to make it look a little nicer. It's a nickel mesh.
Thank you very much. Other comments? Thank you.